Hi, in this session, we're going to talk about the Scala trait. This is the last session of Scala Inheritance Level 1. Let's see what is a Scala trait. Scala traits is basically is a fundamental unit of code reuse in Scala. A trait encapsulates methods and fields definition. As you remember in Java, if you are familiar with Java, a class must inherit only from one superclass. But in Scala, a class can be mixed with any number of traits. So if you want to compare Scala to Java, we could see that a trait is like having an interface in Java, but it has a partial implementation. So we call trait a collection of abstract and non-abstract methods. So let's see how do we define a trait. Before jumping to the syntax of what's a trait, we're going to look at an example. Remember we had the example of student and graduate student. Imagine a graduate student can inherit from two classes. For example, a graduate student is a student and also a tutor, because a graduate students can also do tutoring and get paid from university, and at the same time they can be a student and pay to universities. So imagine we want to implement this case in Scala. What do? We already defined student as a class, if you remember in the last example. And if you want graduate student to take advantage of being a student class and tutor class, we can define tutor as a trait. And how do we define a trait? Defining a trait is exactly like defining a class. Instead of saying class tutor, we just have to say trait tutor. That's it. And it's exactly like how we define classes. It can have fields, let's say name, from the type string, and it can also define a method. I'm just creating an example method. You can have this method as an abstract method that doesn't have implementation, or you can have it like a concrete method that has a body. So this is all about trait. Don't get confused. It's new. It looks different, but at the end of the day, this is exactly what it is. So let's look at an example. So we said a graduate student can be a student and also a tutor. So first thing we do, we define a tutor as a trait, right? With using the keyword trait. We have a course from the type string and array, and we have two methods. We have a method that calculates the income of the tutor and a method that calculates the hours. And I have also a concrete method that is just printing the information of the tutor. Let's see how the graduate student can reuse these two codes. So I say class graduate student. Extends is the first keyword I always use when I use inheritance. It's going to inherit from the class student. And the second trait is always used with. So I can have as much as, if I had another trait, I could also use that. So if it can be a teacher with something else, I can define as many trait as one. And the first trait should be always use the keyword extends, and the rest is using with. But in this case, student is an abstract class, so it uses extends because we're inheriting from student class. So let's look at the graduate student. So graduate student, it's extending tutor with, we have the keyword with tutor. It means that it can reuse and benefit from all the methods and field that tutor have. So here, let's say if I don't define these two methods, I'm getting an error that the calculate income and calculate hours, they need to be implemented. They can't be abstract, because when you call with, you're responsible to implement the abstract methods that this class is. Basically, when you use trait, is basically you want to give a blueprint. You want to guide the programmer which methods they need to be implemented, because you could be undergrad students and the calculation of income could be different from a grad. The rate could be different, and that's why every class that is inheriting from this has to implement those methods. So let's say I'm going to say the rate is $80. The course is a Scala. How we calculate the income? We say calculate the hours, multiple rate, and that gives me the income. We're going to go to the demo. So before we had a new object of graduate student. We said call .printinfo. Here I'm going to call the method .printTutorInfo. If we look at this method is printing the tutor information, is a method part of the tutor tray, and I'm passing the course information. I'll calculate the hours and I calculate the income. So let's go back to demo, and I'm just calling the tutor info and see how it works. So total income for tutoring course Scala for 20 hours is 1,600. Good income, right? That's why you need to learn Scala. Okay, that's it for trade. Don't get confused. It's super simple concept. It's almost look like interface in Java. All you need to know is the keyword tray and the keyword width when you want to extend and use a tray. And we can have a class can extend as many as trade. That's it. Thank you.